He had clearly solved a world-class mathematical problem, but when he came to the library to read, he could only sneak around. Once he was accidentally discovered by the librarian, the man would violently snatch the magazine from his hands and mercilessly drive him out. But even that was not enough for the librarian to vent his anger. He immediately mocked him in public for being poor. The kind-hearted staff member advised Anand to try publishing an article in the magazine so he could receive a lifetime subscription for free. His words gave Anand inspiration, and when he returned home, Anand plunged into his mathematical research. After days of sleepless writing and calculating, at last, he succeeded. The blackboard was filled with dense formulas, radiating the brilliance of a promising future. Anand eagerly took the few remaining coins from his brother's wallet. Running all the way, he wanted to send his research abroad. But at that time, international mail was not a small expense. His father, a postman, immediately started a fundraiser for his son, vowing, "My boy will surely achieve greatness in the future." However, his colleagues mocked the father and son as dreamers, urging Rajendra to face reality and make Anand get a job to support the family. It seemed that only manual labor was the sole path in life. Their vision was forever confined to the small square of land before them, able to see the sunrise and sunset, but unable to reach for the stars and moon. Rajendra refused to let Anand's talent be buried. He would rather withdraw his wife's retirement fund to help mail that letter. He knew well that the lowest ranks could never touch the opportunities to change fate, and he refused to see his son trapped in a muddy path. Watching his father's distant figure, Anand felt a surge of warmth in his heart. His father's open-mindedness and respect were the most precious wealth of his life. While waiting for a reply, Anand found his girlfriend Supriya and shared his research with her. Anand knew her family was wealthy and powerful and would never approve of a poor young man like him. Now only by relying on his wisdom could he cross social barriers and be worthy of Supriya's years of devotion. They made a vow in secret with heaven and earth as their witnesses. Not long after, Rajendra came running home, waving a letter. Anand had been exceptionally admitted to Cambridge University. His research was published in a journal and even praised by professors. That thin admission letter, raised high above Rajendra's head, became the hope of the whole family. Anand stood frozen for a long time, tears of joy streaming down the corners of his eyes. The first thing he did was rush to the library, slamming the journal with his paper inside onto the librarian's desk. The curve of his smile was the pride he had regained. The librarian looked at the young man before him and lowered his head in shame. Supriya eagerly introduced Anand to her father. The wealthy businessman looked him up and down, surprised by the Cambridge admission, yet still could not help but ask questions.
जाओगे कैसे? इंग्लैंड?
वो पिताजी PF लोन लेके.
A flash of arrogance passed through his eyes. He did not think highly of Anand, and only out of consideration for his daughter did he not show his disdain outright. Anand's family busily prepared his luggage. His mother took off her beloved shawl and sewed it into his winter coat. His father ran everywhere, using his provident fund to apply for loans to gather Anand's tuition. But the high cost of studying abroad was still far beyond what this small family could bear. To collect enough for the trip to England, Rajendra brought Anand to knock on the door of the education minister, Shriram. It was because when Anand won a gold medal in the math competition, Shriram had once made a promise.
You need any help? Emotional, social, economical. Come to my house, 24-hour open.
But when Anand really asked for help, Shriram's face instantly changed. He scolded the young man for caring too much about money, saying it would destroy the spirit of perseverance. Beneath Shriram's lofty words was contempt for the poor. Anand still would not give up. He took out the Cambridge admission letter, hoping to receive some help. But Shriram simply waved his hand, telling him to pursue his dream while never forgetting to serve the nation, without mentioning funding at all. On the way back, although his father reassured him not to worry, that he would find a way to send him to England, Anand knew well that his family was already stretched thin. Raising him this far had already bent his father's back with burden. And this road of over 7,000 kilometers to study abroad, no one knew how much money it would cost to fill. So, as not to delay Anand's studies, Rajendra almost pawned every valuable item at home, even thick-skinned enough to ask an old friend to repay a debt from long ago. But the friend had just married off his daughter and could not pay back. Rajendra came home empty-handed and the next day turned to another department in hopes of a loan. But since the family still lived in a rented house, the bank refused his application outright. In their eyes, the bloodline of the poor was destined to remain in the sewers forever, while reading and learning were rights reserved only for the rich. Anand looked at the admission letter in his hand, feeling his dream drift farther away while life kept dragging him back. And as if hardship never came alone, misfortune struck once again. Overcome with grief and anger, Rajendra collapsed. Anand and his brother quickly lifted their father, pedaling the family's only valuable bicycle through the rain, racing against death. Just as the hospital was almost in sight, the bicycle chain that had carried them for years suddenly snapped, and the father stopped breathing in his brother's arms. In that moment, Anand's heart shattered, but life had to go on, and he inherited the old bicycle, riding through the streets selling crispy bread. The mathematical talent he once took pride in when spoken out loud had now turned into the bitter phrase, "You still owe me half a rupee." Anand knew very well that he no longer deserved his girlfriend, so he urged her to seek a new life. The promises of the past finally turned into tears, burning the reckless heart of his youth. He bent down to shoulder the burden of the family, walking alone in the rain to cover the unbearable weight of life. That admission letter, under his unwilling gaze, slowly turned into ashes. One day, while Anand was selling goods outside, he fell by the roadside trying to avoid a small car. Facing the driver's scolding, he remained silent, only bowing his head to pick up the banknotes scattered on the ground until the driver suddenly called his name. Anand lifted his head, his face weathered by hardship, unable to believe that anyone still remembered him. Lalan was the previous year's math competition gold medalist, now running a coaching institute that provided tutoring for wealthy children, helping them pass the entrance exams to India's top universities. He told Anand that the value of a person's talent was not in how many zeros followed, but in the number that came before them. From 1 to 9, the higher the number, the greater the value of life. If Anand was willing, he could join the institute as a teacher in the elite class, earning a generous salary and realizing his self-worth. To choose between sitting in a car or riding the old bicycle selling goods, this choice was not difficult. Lalan brought Anand to his home, and the magnificent sight before him pierced Anand's heart. Both were gold medalists, yet their lives could not have been more different. Without much hesitation, Anand chose to join Lalan's team and became a lecturer for the elite class. Fortunately, many parents still remembered the honors Anand had once achieved. All Lalan had to do was hang a poster of Anand on the street, and it instantly attracted countless parents. They held thick wads of cash, competing to send their children into the elite class. Soon, Anand's classroom was filled with students. After receiving his first paycheck, he tossed the old bicycle into a corner and turned to buy a motorcycle. His life changed drastically, suddenly breaking away from poverty, with money so hot in his hands that he could hardly hold it. During that period, Anand almost visited every shopping mall in the city, each time coming out with a new piece of jewelry. From gold watches to necklaces, his past inferiority gradually disappeared in the lavish spending. As dreams faded and memories were set aside, Anand began chasing fame and fortune, his once clear eyes turning clouded. Supriya was delighted. Though Anand hadn't entered university, he had a respectable job and could now stand tall before her father. When she sat behind him on his motorcycle, her happiness overflowed. Anand seemed to have risen beyond his original class, but he was still firmly under the grip of capital. One day at a student enrollment site, Anand noticed a poorly dressed father and son who could not afford the fees, cautiously asking if there was a scholarship. Their humble gaze carried a deep thirst for knowledge. For a moment, Anand seemed to see himself back then, secretly studying in the library. At that time, he had also begged the librarian for a chance to study, but only received ruthless rejection. Years later, standing in the librarian's position, he spoke the same words. There are no scholarships here. Anand too began to accept that education was a privilege of the wealthy. Little did he know, every penny he earned for the institute eventually flowed into Shriram's pocket. The minister used the money to build an even larger campus. The new building contained not only tutoring classrooms, but also ballrooms and bars for the rich to host weddings. When the glittering world of power entwined with education, knowledge was no longer a ladder to change destiny, but a pyramid guarding wealth. At the top was the endless revelry of the powerful, while beneath it lay the bones of the poor. They were not even worthy of a tombstone, for they had no right to literacy. The eternal law of wealth reached perfection at that very moment. One night, after attending a celebration banquet, Anand staggered to his motorcycle in a drunken haze, failing several times to start it. Just as he was about to find a place to rest, he was drawn to a boy studying under a streetlight. Anand only glanced at the boy's calculations, and the drunkenness in his eyes instantly faded. He could not help asking the boy where he went to school, but received an unexpected reply. The boy could not afford tuition, so he worked while studying in the dim glow of the streetlight. Before they could speak further, the boy was called away by his boss. While quickly finishing the last steps of the problem, he ran off to continue working. Looking at the clear and rigorous logic on the paper, Anand felt a pang of regret. On the way home, he couldn't help but talk with the rickshaw driver about the boy. The driver pedaled hard and replied with a hint of self-mockery, "What can studying bring people like us? It's nothing but an empty dream." The driver told Anand a story. Once there was a king, and if in his country a boy's archery skill surpassed that of the prince, the king would send someone to cut off the boy's fingers to make sure the prince always stayed in first place. The king's son was still the prince, and no matter how capable others were, he could never be replaced. Hearing this, Anand sobered up completely. His dream once was to replace the prince, to break hereditary privilege, to stand at the top and challenge power. But now, he had become the executioner training princes, helping the institution cut away the thumbs of poor boys, forcing them out of the education system. In the crowd, he saw countless pairs of eyes longing for knowledge, gradually merging with the image of his younger self. That silent cry was the resistance against educational injustice. Now that time had passed, it was time for him to find the road he once set out on. After sobering up, Anand made a bold decision, taking out all his savings to print tens of thousands of flyers. On the flyers, he announced that he would start a new tutoring program dedicated to helping children from poor families. Because of the limited budget, there were only 30 spots. This program, named Super 30, had only just begun, yet it consumed all of Anand's wealth. His gold watch was pawned, and his motorcycle was sold. When the glamour faded, what remained was still his simple, genuine self. Anand once again pedaled the old bicycle, handing out flyers through the streets, but Supriya could not understand his actions. Since Anand failed to reach Cambridge, Supriya's father had already planned to arrange another marriage for her. It was only because of her pleas, combined with Anand becoming a teacher in the elite class, that her father reluctantly agreed. But now, Anand was scattering his wealth again to help others. This was the price of Anand's stubbornness. He lost his job, and he lost his love. Anand raised his head toward the blinding sunlight. That was the place he wanted to send the children to reach. Since the nation's education had a broken link, he was willing to become a ladder, building a road toward their dreams. To let students study without worry, Anand not only canceled all tuition fees but also promised in his flyers that he would provide food for them every day. As long as they were willing to learn, he would give everything he had. He didn't want to see children like himself, letting their talent sink into the sands of the Ganges, spending a lifetime buried in hardship. Those figures struggling in the mud, those children trapped in villages, those girls forced into marriage far too early because of gender. They all should have soared across a wider sky. For the first batch, Anand insisted the class must have exactly 30 students to begin. He had thought this was a distant goal, but he underestimated the energy hidden in this land, for too many children longed for knowledge. On the day class began, thin figures crowded the street corner, holding their dreams in their hands, looking up toward the tall buildings. Anand's first class quickly filled. When the last student walked into the classroom wanting to join, Anand gently refused him. He was only one step too late, but in exams, being one step behind meant 1,000 others could get ahead. One step short, and a diploma would never be in hand. This was Anand's first lesson to the students. And these students who came from every corner, some risked their lives crossing rivers. Some caught rides on trucks along the highway. Some walked hungry for 2 days just to arrive here. In their eyes, there was only one shared belief: to study in order to change fate. Before the classes began, Lalan paid a visit here. Because Anand had left without a word, many parents complained. They had spent huge amounts of money for classes, all for Anand's reputation. Some students even went so far as to threaten that if Anand did not return to teach, they would bring the institute to complete collapse. Lalan had no choice but to bring gifts, asking Anand to come back. Anand frowned and asked him in return who decided the divide between students, and were poor children really unworthy of the best education. He solemnly declared that if there truly were laws written like this, he would change them with his own hands. His persistence made Lalan angry. Before leaving, Lalan pointed at the children with contempt, saying, "Even if you managed to send 1 or 2 into the top universities, what about the others? Would they once again be forced back into the sewers to struggle for survival?" The words pierced the already fragile pride of the children. Before Lalan posed the question, none of them had ever thought about what would happen if they failed. That night, some wanted to quit. They were afraid of failing after all their hard work, afraid of being filled with knowledge yet still worthless, only to return to endless physical labor. Under their young frames was innocence untested by the world. Anand was heartbroken, yet he could only ask each one, "What do you still have left to lose? From the day you were born into poverty and a lowly family, what else did you have besides your life? If you don't fight to change everything now, will you wait until old age to regret it?" When passion is tied to the blueprint of dreams, effort becomes the least valuable thing to hesitate about. Anand, like a magician of the Middle Ages, in a lively and engaging speech, broke down each problem into vivid pictures, showing them before the children's eyes. At the same time, the pressure on Lalan was also growing. Sri Ram could not tolerate his flow of money being cut off, and he forced Lalan to do whatever it took, even by force, to drag Anand back to the institute and give the parents an explanation. Education was not a free cake for everyone to take a slice of. Driven by profit, Lalan kept using tricks, first sending people to cut off Anand's electricity. But the children did not give up. They used the knowledge they had learned and generated power with dried cow dung. Lalan then sent a woman to smear Anand's reputation, but her acting was so poor that when Anand stood right in front of her, she could not even recognize who he was. The rumor collapsed on its own, so Lalan turned to gangsters asking them to call Anand with threats. Yet, Anand only left them a short reply, "I'll be waiting anytime," before hanging up the phone. The road ahead was full of danger. He could not foresee every risk, nor did he know how far he could go. He only wished to live with a clear conscience. There were less than 8 months left before the entrance exam. For these children with no foundation, they had to catch up with an entire year's progress within 8 months. But soon, the shortage of textbooks became the biggest obstacle. There were 30 children here, yet only one book to study from. Anand's money was nowhere near enough to buy more books. He could only carry what little cash he had, searching shop by shop, hoping to make copies at the lowest possible cost. But when he returned to the classroom, he was surprised to find that the children had turned the book into a projector, racing against time to copy every single lesson to make up for the lack of materials. Watching the children study tirelessly in the dark, Anand felt a wave of comfort in his heart. Compared to children born into wealth, these students had more toughness. They were like weeds by the roadside, and once given even a little nourishment, they grew with all their strength. But soon, another problem appeared. With resources running dry, the family's food kept dwindling, and how to feed 30 children became the pressing challenge. To let the children study in peace, Anand had to go to the bank, hoping for a loan. The bank manager looked at Anand's empty account and directly rejected him. Seeing Anand's embarrassment, the manager pretended to be kind, allowing them to take away the snacks prepared for guests. With nowhere else to turn, Anand went back to Lalan's educational institute, hoping he would lend a helping hand. Lalan wasn't surprised by his visit. He'd long expected Anand's tutoring class wouldn't last. He pulled out a thick stack of cash, demanding Anand shut down his class and return to teach here. Anand said nothing. His silence was his refusal. Lalan did not press, instead suggesting a competition to decide the outcome, to see whose students had better results. If Anand won, Lalan would provide 3 months of food free of charge, but if Anand lost, he had to agree to return and teach at the institute. Faced with this unfair deal, Anand could only accept, hoping to create a miracle in desperation. To ensure fairness, they invited Purushottam as a notary and signed the agreement on the spot. Although Anand trusted in his students' abilities, on the way to the exam, he still could not help but give them extra reminders. But just as they reached the gate, former students blocked his path with a question.
हमें काहे नहीं पढ़ाते आप? इसमें हमारा क्या गलती है अगर हम अमीर है तो?
Hearing it, Anand lowered his head with a helpless smile. He did not know how to explain to the children, how to explain the gap between rich and poor, or the different worlds they each saw. The world was uneven, and he only wished to become a brick to hold up a piece of sky. But when he finally spoke, all he asked was, "Did you eat today?"
हाँ, खाए? वो लोग नहीं खाए.
Soon, the exam was over. In front of Purushottam as witness, the results from both sides were placed on the table. Anand's students, falling behind by 3 points, lost the match. Lalan strutted up to the stage with pride, inviting Anand to fulfill his promise. Anand struggled to his feet, ready to announce the closure of his program. But at that moment, a journalist stood up demanding that Purushottam show the agreement. It turned out that before the results were even announced, he had received an anonymous call, saying Anand had been coerced and never signed anything. Now every eye was on the stage, but after searching his briefcase several times, Purushottam found no such document. At this point, whether to keep the promise depended only on Anand's conscience. On one side was the promise of a gentleman, on the other was the hope built with all his effort. In the end, he pulled the microphone close and denied the existence of the agreement. Lalan shouted in anger that Anand was cheating. Hearing this, Anand turned back and replied, "The prejudice fate holds against the poor is already a kind of cheating, and I am only giving it back in kind." Anand's narrow escape was thanks to Supriya, now Purushottam's wife. Even after marriage, Supriya cared about Anand's plight. Unable to bear seeing him lose, she stole the agreement and made the anonymous call. Later, when she confessed her fault to her husband, Purushottam told her he had known all along. The reason he hadn't stopped her was because he admired what Anand was doing. The past was now smoke in the wind. Why not let it disappear with the breeze? As they exchanged smiles, the barriers between them vanished in that moment. Back in the classroom, Anand could not understand. Why did his students lose the competition? Had they forgotten how hard this road had been? He did not want them to dwell on suffering. He only wanted them to know that the margin for error for the poor was very small. For the rich, Life allowed countless choices, and if they stumbled once, there would always be countless hands to lift them back up. But for the poor, a single failure was enough to decide the rest of their lives. Anand's disappointed gaze swept across the room, and the students instinctively lowered their heads. After a moment of silence, someone gave a reason. The exam questions were not really difficult for them. In class, they could solve them with ease. But when they stepped into that wide and brightly lit room, faced with the rich kids in fine clothes, their sense of inferiority overwhelmed them. They were not fluent in English. They could not read the labels on the rich students' clothes, nor could they afford even one of their shoes. Looking down, the stains on their shirts that had not been washed clean seemed completely out of place in the shining classroom. During the exam, their minds went blank. The knowledge they had studied was pressed down into a corner by shame. Each time they turned their heads, they remembered the days when they had bowed low to serve others. Under such crushing psychological pressure, failing was inevitable. Hearing their explanation, Anand finally understood the problem. He had taught the children all the knowledge, but had forgotten to teach them how to live with their backs held straight. To build their confidence, Anand assigned a special task, requiring them to perform a play in pure English during the Holy Festival the next day. And if anyone could not do it, they could leave now. What looked like harsh pressure actually hid his careful intention. Anand knew well that changing a person's habits was not hard. What was hard was reforging the backbone inside. The next day during the festival celebration, the students walked onto the stage stumbling over their lines. Their clumsy performance drew boos from the audience. Halfway through their play, the audience began to drive them off. In isolation and ridicule, the young bodies suddenly erupted with defiance. They united, their voices rising from small to loud, shouting out the words from deep in their hearts. Their passion melted the atmosphere of the scene, pulling more and more people to join in. Even the rich kids could not help but take part in the carnival. It became a performance without boundaries, and what everyone celebrated was the power of confidence. Seeing this, Anand could not help but smile. He finally found time to solve the food problem for the children. Anand went to a restaurant owner, using mathematical calculations to help him solve the problem of losing customers. As payment, he asked the owner to provide 3 months of meals for the children. After calculating his profits, the owner gladly agreed. Walking out of the restaurant with a large bag of food in his hands, Anand finally felt his heart settle. There were 3 months left before the entrance exam. For these 30 children, if even one failed to enter university, it would feel to him like his own failure. Late one night, as he prepared to deliver dinner, a stranger stopped him, revealing a weapon at his waist, saying Lalan had sent him to take Anand's life. Lalan had now lost all reason, because Anand's program was becoming more and more famous, cutting into the institute's enrollment. Shriram behind him demanded Lalan destroy Anand at any cost. He couldn't tolerate poor children standing at the gates of India's top university. It was an insult not only to him, Shriram, but to all the wealthy parents. The killer chose to confess only because of Anand's late father. He warned Anand that Lalan would never stop and that he must always stay on guard. After a moment's thought, Anand made a request. If I am ever assassinated, don't spread it. Seeing the shock in the man's eyes, Anand smiled with relief, saying that there were many people in the world who wanted reform. He was only one among them. They were like sparks, lit by accident across an endless grassland, small and unnoticed at first, but one day those sparks would connect, and with unstoppable force, burn away the injustice of the world. At that time, if his own death discouraged them, that would be the greatest tragedy of all. If my small body can be fuel for a future wildfire, then let me be a stick of kindling to light their path. Pranav went to the police station, hoping they would send officers to protect Anand. But the police refused. To them, Anand was just a teacher. No matter how many he helped, he was not qualified to receive protection. The indifference of society could not be separated from the hand of capital. Behind Anand stood millions of poor families' children, but their strength was still limited. What he faced was the enemy of the entire upper class, and their weapons were already aimed at his head, waiting only for him to lower his guard. That day, Anand was on his way to deliver meals to his students as usual, when his bicycle chain suddenly broke again while passing by the train tracks. Just as he fixed it and was about to continue forward, 2 men suddenly surrounded him from behind. Taking advantage of his moment of distraction, one of them pulled the trigger. Fortunately, the bullet did not hit a vital spot. Not giving up, the killers dragged Anand onto the train tracks, pressing his body down tightly. But as the roaring train approached, they backed off at the last second. Anand narrowly escaped death, and Pranav arrived just in time to save him, rushing him to the hospital for emergency treatment. Yet Lalan's revenge was far from over. He sent even more men, determined to kill Anand and also eliminate the 30 students. When Anand received the news, he said only one sentence. With his weak voice, he gave his students courage. urging them to fight against the darkness. The seeds planted in the past would begin to sprout today. The children turned knowledge into their weapon, wiped away tears of weakness, and faced the dark forces storming toward the hospital. Using the law of sound reflection, they tricked the assassins into the hospital, then used flickering lights to crush their psychological defenses. In the chaos, the killers barged into a room behind a rolling shutter. Moments later, the children closed the doors, trapping them inside, but a new wave of attackers was already on its way. The children found tools and made simple slingshots, standing on the hospital rooftop, adjusting their angles, and launching flames into the night sky. After a night of fierce battle, without even resting their exhausted bodies, they carried their determination into the exam hall. It was still the same ancient story. The king's son was the prince. Under hereditary rule, every cycle of succession buried countless lives of ordinary people. But the era had changed, and now those who could reach the throne were judged not by noble blood, but by the sweat burning hot on their foreheads. After 10 long years of hard study, braving the wind and snow, the day to fight with all their might had finally come. On the day the results were announced, the children waited nervously outside the gates. Anand asked them to close their eyes and give thanks to their parents. He wanted to remind them never to forget the road they had traveled, never to forget the tears when leaving their homes, never to forget the support and the helplessness of their parents. Though born poor, they had earned the power to fight with their own strength. No matter what the result was today, life would never return to its starting point. They must believe their destiny was in their own hands. When the gates opened, Anand did not go inside. He waited outside anxiously until his brother came out and told him every one of the 30 students had been admitted to the Indian Institute of Technology. In that instant, Anand felt as if he had gone back to the day when his father, under the scorching sun, told him about his Cambridge admission letter. Once again, tears streamed uncontrollably down the corners of his eyes. The path he had walked had not been in vain. The dream for the future was already built, and this life could never be called wasted. The passionate cheers in the rain became the most beautiful symphony Anand had ever heard. Years later, when Anand's students stood on stage and shared their stories about their teacher, thunderous applause filled the hall. That student said that without teacher Anand, his future years later might have been the same as his father's, becoming a street peddler wandering the roads. Anand had changed far more than just his own life. This was a true story. That year, in Anand's very first batch, all 30 of his students were admitted to the Indian Institute of Technology. In the following 16 years, he went on to send 422 poor students into IIT, breaking through the barriers of wealth and poverty in education. Time magazine listed his Super 30 program among Asia's best in 2010, and in 2019, he received the Award for Excellence in Education. We may never truly understand what kind of strength carried him through such hardships, lifting countless poor children into hope. But Anand's story shocked us again and again, sweeping through like a storm. The butterfly rescued from suffering soared over mountains, crossed rivers, and flew toward a higher and wider sky. Those children whom Anand sent into higher education had never thought of relying on anyone again from the moment they decided to pursue their studies. The character shaped by poverty was unyielding perseverance. They knew there was no one behind them to lean on, so they built their future with their own hands. Years of study and youthful dreams, neither youth nor old age would be wasted.